one, and yes. Welcome back to the CastWorthy podcast. It is Wednesday, February 12th, 2020. The CastWorthy podcast crew is here, minus our leader, El Jefe, El Capitan, scumbag. I don't know what to call him. Steve-O, who is diligently working to feed his beautiful family. Shout out to Nikki and Ashton. Yeah, man, we're here. You can find the CastWorthy podcast on most of your podcast streaming listening sites. That would be Spreaker, www.spreaker.com, almost like speaker, but a R in front of no, after the P rather. iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, podcast. What is the name of that one? It's Cast something. Can't remember the name of the other one. iHeartRadio. What else do we have? Castbox. I'm sorry, Deezer. And that is about all I can think of. You can also catch us on YouTube, on our CastWorthy YouTube channel. Follow our social media rather on Twitter, CastWorthy, all one word. And IG at CastWorthy_podcast. And I'm joined here with the VP of Research straight out of Miami, Florida. What it do, Playboy?
What's up? What's going on, man?
Same old same. How's everything going tonight, man?
It's all right, man. I kind of been fighting the man this week, man. So yeah, man. So here in Florida, or in Central Florida at least, where we are, we have two separate toll systems for the highway. So you have SunPass, which is like the state of Florida toll roads, and then you have CFX, which is Central Florida Expressway Authority. And the systems are kind of interchangeable. So if you got a SunPass account, you can go through. CFX calls their joint ePass. So so if you got SunPass, you can go through ePass roads, and they kind of coordinate with each other to debit your account appropriately, right? So I get a letter in the mail telling me I got like 6 toll violations or whatever.
Damn.
And yeah, so I hit up my sister-in-law because she's like a manager over at the SunPass joint. I'm like, yo, like, what do I need to do here? Can you check to make sure these things legit? She's like, oh, nah, those are CFX. You got to call them. It's not in our system at all. I'm like, all right, I'll just go ahead and pay it. No problem. She was like, nah, don't pay it. She was like, because they make mistakes all the time. She was like, so go on your SunPass account, check your transaction log, because that thing might already been paid. I'm like, all right, bet. I go on, sure enough, 5 of 6 violations were paid at the time I went through the tolls. So I send them I call, and I talk to this dude who's like talking to me like I'm some scumbag trying to avoid paying $7.20.
Oh, you missed. Oh, this is an error, eh? Huh? You sure?
And then so he's like, I mean, since you're claiming that they were paid, I was like, dude, I'm not claiming. I'm looking at the motherfucking receipts. Like, come on, man. So he basically gives me like his email address. I got to email them and all this crap. So I email them, send them a strongly worded letter, and include the receipts and everything like that. They email me back today, and they're like, hey, we see it. We're going to fix it. Don't worry about it. But in the meantime, there's 2 other letters we sent you for some other violations. I'm like, what the fuck? Damn. So I go on my account. I do the same process again. Check. It's 2 separate letters with a total of 5 toll violations. And all of them shits were paid. So I sent a brand new strongly worded email with the receipts, like, yo, fix it. So I'm waiting on that response. And then I told them, like, yo, y'all need to fix y'all's shit, because out of the 11 total toll violations, 9 are from the same toll station. So I'm like, obviously, it's something wrong with your shit.
Or somebody. So it is impossible that somebody might have hacked it or done something or stolen because it remains in your car, right? And you have it, or
yeah, like, so I don't even have like the little transponder. We have you got the option of getting the transponder that you can kind of take off the car and put in another car or whatever, or they have a sticker that's like permanently on your windshield that has like some kind of chip that it reads, and we have the sticker, so it's in there. It doesn't move or anything like that. So I think it's just something wrong with their transponder, or not their transponder, but their equipment that reads the thing.
Well, y'all state is crazy anyway, man, with all of the on and off ramp tolls, and like they're taxing the hell out of y'all. Like I'd be scared. I was scared to drive down there, like, man, because I ain't know, if I'd be able to get through. Like it's kind of like PAs like that, with
Yeah,
all them on and off type tolls for your car. Yeah, fighting the man indeed.
yeah, man.
VP versus the state of Florida.
you know And I mean, the whole thing totaled out to be like $11 and some change. And like old me would have just paid that shit. Like, it's $11, whatever. But
Right.
I mean, I ain't balling out of control by no circumstance. But I'm like, it's $11. Like new
Yeah.
me, like, since like we've talked in the past about how me and my wife, we done got our financial house in order, and we live on a budget and everything like that. So new me is like, fuck that. I'm not paying no extra money. So
Yeah, it's a
fix it.
principle. It's also the principle,
Right.
man. I mean, ain't trying to get these people no more bread.
Exactly.
That's what emails are for. But okay, with that said though, you're married. You married your high school sweetheart there, right?
Yep.
No. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I had to make sure I didn't want to get in
Yep.
trouble. Didn't want to get in trouble. Um so Valentine's Day is approaching, my friend. Are you prepared? I don't want to expose you here, but blink twice if you're in trouble. But are you prepared for Valentine's Day, man? It's right around the corner.
So I'm actually good. For me, things are a little bit tougher since I am handicapped. My wife got to
Mhm,
drive me everywhere. So
mhm.
I did get her something, but it gets delivered by Amazon. So it's not, she's the one who got to check the mail. I can't go out there. So,
Right, right, right,
so,
right.
it's not really too many surprises, but she already got it. She's happy about it. As far as like going out to dinner, things like that, that's actually something that we don't do, and
Mhm,
it kind of harkens back to my military time, because
mhm,
as you probably know, a lot of military bases are in small towns.
mhm.
So you got a base of 5, 6, 8,000 Marines, and it's like 2 chain restaurants in the whole town. So
You did talk about
Valentine's
this
Day,
before,
yeah,
packed
those
and
they're
fighting the
packed.
crowds, and yeah.
Yeah. So we usually either go the week before or the week after. So we'll probably do something next week, go out and have like a nice dinner or whatever, just to avoid the crowd.
Okay, okay, nice, nice.
What about you?
Me, for the first time in a long time, I don't have any solid Valentine's Day plans. I am completely single, and not even so much ready to mingle anymore. But yeah, man, I'm not doing nothing actually. I probably, the girls will be here this weekend. I'll
Okay.
probably take them out Friday night maybe, and maybe just take them out and maybe get them some cards and give them some candy that I already have here. Uh and cool out with them. So yeah, man, it's pretty dry for me. However, I was reflecting back on some people that I was potentially talking to, that I was, I thought possibly going somewhere. And I realized that, and this is where the podcast gets rated R. I realized that I was getting sent nude pictures, like nude pictures of these women that I know.
Uh-huh.
And I've dubbed this thing that happens. I get these pictures, and you're like, I mean, I'm a guy, and I'm like, great. I done hit the jackpot. This is excellent. Not saying or suggesting that sex would follow, but I would think that at some point, if you sent someone nude photos of yourself, some where you're clearly identified either by tattoo, by face, something, right? I would think you would at least attempt to continue making contact with that person.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't happen. And I've come to the conclusion that people today are just simply sending what I call empty nudes. You're sending nudes with empty meaning behind it, and nothing happens. I mean, dates were set up. I mean, just lack of communication. And I just don't understand how in 2020, in the technological age that we're in, you can afford to send empty nudes. I'm just gonna send this guy naked pictures and it means nothing. Am I wrong for thinking about this?
So so I don't think that you're wrong in your line of thinking, but I wonder if the chick is like, yo, let me show this motherfucker what he's missing. You know what I'm saying? So, because even if it don't got the face, maybe it has like something that lets you know it's her,
Mhm.
and then, she gets you looking like, oh shit. You hit her up like, yo, what's popping? And then it's, no response, no communication, nothing, and she could be sitting at home thinking like, oh, I got his ass now. He thinking it's about to pop off and I'm about to leave him with some goddamn blue balls or something. So,
I just don't get it though. I mean, in the specific instances I'm talking about, the face is there,
mm,
okay, and I'm just thinking like, there was a date scheduled. The follow through never happened on her end. I'm just like, how does one do such a thing and not even so much get a dinner date? How do you not even just like say, you know what, you're gonna take me out at the very
yeah.
least? I just and you know what? I may sound like I'm complaining because I was the one that ended up with the great gift in the end, but I just don't know, man. The empty nudes. I'm dubbing this the empty nudes. Okay, in 2020, stop sending empty nudes. Don't send someone nudes that you're not planning on dealing with at all. Just don't do it. It's not.
I
It's not
I
cool. Has me days from Valentine's Day wondering what is going on in my life.
agree.
But any route, uh, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Um, there's been a lot of hoopla or discussion in the black community and community at large about Gayle King and this decorated reporter and Gayle King and her interview with basketball great and friend of Kobe Bryant, Miss Lisa Leslie. And you had a chance to listen to the clip earlier.
Uh-huh.
And funny thing is, today I actually finally clicked on the same clip because I actually, with everything in social media and Facebook, I just been overwhelmed with all of the nonsense, the back and forth about it. But we are a Castworthy podcast, and we cover a range of topics. So, Kobe was our guy. He didn't start out that way for you and I, but he wound up our guy, and it's relevant. So we're gonna talk about it, man. You heard it today. What were your thoughts about Gayle King and the interview with Lisa Leslie? Just a small clip of what you heard.
So when I listened to it, I kind of felt two ways about it. When you first hear her ask Lisa Leslie about does the rape allegation, mean anything as far as when you're talking about his legacy, my immediate thought was, is it too soon? Right? Because I know that I read something that they had a private ceremony for Gianna, but I wasn't sure if it was Gianna and Kobe or was it just Gianna and they're doing something at another time.
So, I mean, speaking of the the private ceremony and everything like that. Um, yeah, I'd kind of picked up on that as well, and heard about this separate ceremony. Um, but yeah, she was getting into this interview with Lisa Leslie, and acknowledging that they were close friends, and pretty much asking her feelings about it, and all of that. But you were saying that there was a separate ceremony for Gigi and Kobe, and then you were wondering if it was too soon in getting into the interview, and what were you saying about that?
Right. So my initial thought on it was, is it too soon to be asking this kind of question, given that, the guy, just died, his family is still mourning, his friends and fans and everything like that are still in mourning, right? But at the same time, Gayle King is a journalist, and journalists' jobs are to ask questions and not to, necessarily make sure, someone's, reputation stays intact, right? And it's not like she's asking something about, some, thing that's rumored out there or whatever. This is something that happened. Kobe was arrested for it. His charges were later dismissed because the victim says that she didn't want to cooperate anymore. So whether or not things went down the way that the victim said back in 2004, 2005, whenever that was that happened.
Yeah. Um, Lost the audio again. We're gonna get him back in here. VP's having some technical difficulties, but we should be right back up. Um, he's got that bootleg Spectrum internet service over there. I think it may be Steve doing this from his office. I think it's maybe Steve doing this, cutting us in and out. But yeah, you were saying it happened in 2004. Victim.
Right. So at the end of the day, Gayle King's a journalist. Her job is to ask questions. And I don't think that that's an unfair question. Like anybody on this planet, Kobe is a person, and like all people are onions. They have layers. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
while Kobe is a great, from I don't know him personally, but from the things I see in the media, he seems like a great father. He seemed like he was a great husband, aside from this thing that happened. He was a great basketball player, etc. But this thing also happened as part of his life, and I don't think that it's right to necessarily sugarcoat it. Was it too soon? Probably. Was it wrong to ask the question? I don't think so. But the
Yeah,
response has just been crazy, though, to me.
yeah. I mean, speaking on the interview itself, I think it was kind of unfair to ask Lisa, Leslie, as a friend of his. Um, I wonder if they discussed that prior to,
Mhm.
as I would often think that people kind of go over that kind of thing. But Gayle King might be one of those journalists where people may not have thought she might ask, or she might not have cared, or who knows. It was very real and very a part of Kobe's legacy, and things that happened. I think the one point that stood out for me that Lisa Leslie asked, or said rather, basically, you guys had a lot of time to address this with him when he was alive. It was very soon. It was very sudden. This death, and this tragedy, and to kind of go there and then continue to kind of pry into her a little bit. I didn't really like too much. But you're right. She is a journalist. She has the freedom and the right to do that and ask those questions. I think it's kind of corny for her to kind of ask and bring it up and then walk it back after she received all of the backlash. I think if you were prepared to ask that question and you wanted to do it, take it on the chin, ride with it. But yeah, man, it's kind of crazy. And then the backlash. Speak about the backlash that you were referring to.
Real quick before that, when you said like she walked it back, from my understanding, from what I read on that, was that um, CBS put out a clip of the interview, and Gayle King is saying that the clip they put out was released out of context, and then that's where the backlash started from, was from this out of context clip. But yeah, so after this thing happened, Snoop Dogg went on, social media and basically went on this grant against Gayle King, and he ends up saying something to the effect of, we'll come and get you, or we'll ride on you, or something like that, And you fast forward from the time that that's happened, especially given the age that we live in with the internet and people just, going batshit crazy over, things online.
Yeah.
CBS has had to put Gayle King under security. And this is a woman, she's a journalist, and she's sleeping, with her kid at home with security because she asked a question in an interview, and that's just insane to me, like where do we live at? You know what I mean? Like, this is America. You can't ask questions here, like what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and he was really disrespectful, in his rant and his discussion about that. And I know he was hurt and he was emotionally reacting to what had happened. And by no means, again, is Snoop should or should Snoop ever be looked at as the moral cultural compass. And I think that's one reason why we shouldn't always hold these celebrities so high, because Snoop is a guy who's come from where he's come from. He's lived the life he's lived, and while he's doing a lot of great things now, he's been extremely unpolished. He's been extremely uh brash in a lot of ways. Even when you watch his football series and coaching, and how he kind of says and curses a lot and does different things. But I mean, aside from that, he was emotionally lashing out, and I think he was wrong in doing that. I'm not gonna crucify him for it, because it could have happened to anyone, at any chance. But yeah, I agree with you. It was a little rough.
Yeah.
A little rough.
The thing that kind of bothered me about it was Viacom, which is the parent company that owns CBS.
Mhm.
They also own VH1, which Snoop
Mm.
has a reality show with Martha Stewart.
Yes.
And they're taping episodes, this week with Snoop and Martha Stewart and stuff. And with all this stuff happening in the Trump administration, not to get into politics, but
Mhm.
people keep saying we got to protect journalists, and here is something that's happening to one of your journalists, and yeah, you did the right thing and put her under security. But why? I'm not saying necessarily fire Snoop, but maybe you could do something here to say, hey, if you're going to work for us, you can't threaten our employees, regardless of your VH1 and she's CBS. It's still Viacom, all under the same umbrella, and I'm surprised that they didn't come out and say something. They still haven't come out to say something about that.
I'm not surprised at all. If you watch the content that VH1 puts out regularly when it comes to Love and Hip Hop, the Love and Hip Hop, New York, Miami, LA, New York, Miami, LA, and New York, Miami, LA, and what the hell am I missing? Atlanta. And
Atlanta.
then you have the Black Ink shows and all these other reality kind of shows or whatever. They allow a lot. They allow the letter and the envelope to be pushed a lot. They kind of expose a lot of these people that they cast for their substance abuse problems, their emotional and mental health issues, and they show a lot of disregard and a lot of lack of just genuine care for the humanity of these people. So it doesn't really surprise me. Um, they seemingly pretty much will do anything for ratings.
Hmm.
So I'm not too surprised. And I mean, to your credit, you would think that some kind of conversation should be had, and maybe it is behind the scenes. But like we always say, in today's day and age, we kind of get access to these kinds of things, and I'm sure we would know by now if they did. Um, so yeah, before we go, I wanted to before we segue into the next thing, because you talked about protecting journalism, freedom of speech, and things of that nature. Wanted to let the fans know, or our listeners know, that we often may have technical difficulties simply for the fact that we're recording remotely. I'm in Maryland, VP, and the rest of the gang is in Florida. So sometimes we have some technical difficulties. We're pulling off a lot. We're podcasting from hundreds and thousands of miles away. So that's what it is. But speaking of freedom of speech, I wanted to segue into a topic um, that kind of not even freedom of speech, but I guess freedom of speech and then sensitivity to what one is saying. So Talib Kweli has a podcast called The People's Party, and I listen to it every now and then, depending on who the guest is. The guest this week was our guy, well, my guy, in some times and some rates, Michael Rappaport, New Yorker, Manhattan guy, raised around black guys in Brooklyn, raised in this rap culture, been a
Remy.
Remy icon actor from Zebrahead and Higher Learning, etc. And him and Talib go back for about 20 years
Okay.
as good friends. Talib Kweli is on this podcast with a younger host by the name of Jasmine Lee, who I have to say, um, she seems cool, seems good for the cast, but oftentimes she seems real out of place due to her age and a lack of connection to some of the things and Talib's guests may speak about. But she's a very strong advocate for women and equality and gay rights and different things like that. So the topic was brought up on how Michael Rappaport and Kenya Moore, I think it is, from Real Housewives of Atlanta, were on a live show. And she basically, Kenya, a black woman, said to Michael Rappaport, you're fat, ugly, and white. And his first response was, with all of these glam people fixing you up, why do you have ashy ankles? So his defense to his response was, look, she snapped on me on live TV. I didn't know what was coming. This was the first thing I had because I saw exactly what her feet looked like. And he was like, yo, I'm unapologetic about it. I don't give a fuck. Talib and Jasmine Lee, however, believed that what he said could be skewed and thought of as something racist. Um, so your response tells it all. And I think their reaction behind that was because white people can't be ashy, so it only applies to black people. And they pretty and Jasmine asked, he said, well, why did you call her fat and black? And he was like, well, then I'd be on here getting criticized for weight shaming a black woman. I mean, what are your thoughts about that overall?
I totally agree with the last comment you just said. If he had said that, he would have been on there. Why'd you bring up her race? And why are you body shaming her and things like that? At the end of the day, I think you have to you got to kind of feel like, where's this person's heart at, right? And like all the accolades and stuff that you mentioned about Rappaport's biography, right? There's nothing in his history that will make me think that he's a racist, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, when people are on your team, you got to support them. Yeah, if they get out of line, they fuck up. You got to check them. In this case, I don't think that that's one of those scenarios. It reminds me back of I don't know if you remember about a year or so ago when Bill Maher said nigger on his show, and people were like, "Oh, this is why I don't fuck with Bill Maher," da 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 da. And I'm like, look, I've been watching Bill Maher for a long time. I don't think that he's racist. I know people have a problem with some of his stances on things, but at the end of the day, I feel like he's an ally. He got out of line. He overstepped here,
Mm-hmm.
and Ice Cube checked him. Other people checked him, and then it's all good now. You know what I mean? So I feel like you got to kind of look at what's in a. I mean, granted, you can't know what's in a person's heart, in their mind, 100%, but you got to look at the evidence that they've presented with their actions over time and kind of make a decision there. And Rappaport is not somebody that I would associate with being racist at all based on his history.
Yeah, and I feel very similarly, and like with him and Bill Maher, I think they've said very close to the letter type of things, and I think largely because they may be so liberal in their thoughts that they kind of forget that, yeah, because you are not internally a racist, you are still a white person, and you got to be conscious that some people may not know your body of work. And then two, I think this culture that we're in is so sensitive that we rather people lie to us and not really say how they feel. I don't think that saying a black woman's ankles are ashy, especially when you understand what that is anything wrong. If your ankles are ashy and you got this glam squad, you damn sure right. Don't be coming for me. Not to make it okay or all right, but Rappaport is married to a black woman. And I think he is very conscious to know better of certain things not to say. And he didn't say something like nigger. So I guess in this instance, for me, if she is coming at him, are we in a society to where he's supposed to, A, as a male, let's say as a white male, B, as a male in general, and C, because she is then black, and then D, because she is then black and female, is he supposed to not say anything at all? Like,
Right.
what response would have been acceptable? And I just think that Talib Kweli in this instance is playing a very dangerous role here, in that, we know you're allied to LGBTQ community. We know you're allied to sexism and racism. But at what point does a person have an ability to just speak their mind, you know, in a way that they can defend themselves? Um, and not only that, I was gonna say something to the effect, oh, not only that, as black people, we have to be conscious that, if you don't want to engage in certain scenarios, we have to be conscious that we just can't say anything because we're black too. Because
Facts.
she's black and a woman, she just gets to say anything about this guy.
Right.
And I think had he responded in any other way, that could have been worse. That would have been even worse. But he talked about your ashy ankles. Like, if your ankles are ashy, your ankles are ashy. Like, it's I don't see that because we're black, we just get a pass to do and say anything because of our history. It's almost like, you know, we're claiming this impenetrable force field that we could just say anything because of all of the things that we went through. No, that's not us going high. That's us going low, and
Yeah.
taking ourselves in a lower stratosphere of quality. You got to be prepared that if you say something, you're gonna get a response.
I totally agree with everything that you just said. The other thing I would say on this is, kind of one of them old sayings, man. You can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen. And so, you came at him, he came at you. Like, what is he supposed to do? Just sit back and take it? And the other thing I would say on this is, if you're gonna be kind of, playing the dozens, talking shit kind of thing, like, you got to be careful when you do it with New Yorkers, because you
Yeah,
know
you
they, they
goddamn right.
they come for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, yo, your shoes is raggedy. Your mom's a whore. You're like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like she might have got off easy just with the ashy ankles. You know what I'm saying? Especially
Yeah,
with a guy like Rappaport.
yeah, yeah. And and they also went further because during this controversy, the root the root, the publication,
Mhm.
they basically started saying how he's the worst kind of white guy ever. They posted a picture that was like Photoshop that he didn't do, and he said he didn't do from the beginning, where they were claiming that he posted a picture of her next to an ape. And he took that very seriously. He was very offended, to where his response at the time, he told the root and the editors of the root to suck his dick. He said,
Mm.
suck my dick. I don't fuck with y'all. And Talib and Jasmine Lee addressed that point. And they said, Talib said something to the effect where he finds it very offensive for someone to say suck my dick because it's offensive to gay people. I didn't understand it, because he was saying to the sense like, yeah, you're making it seem like saying that is a negative thing. And even in that regard, I think Talib was doing himself a disservice, because now you're assuming that all gay people might do that.
Yeah.
All gay people that involve in that orientation may do that. Like, just because someone said that, you can't automatically assume that it's applicable to the LGBTQ community. He said suck my dick. He didn't say anything about being gay about it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think even while Talib was trying to be safe and protect a group of people, he also stereotyped the phrase towards these people.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was kind of wild. And if you ever get a chance just to listen to that part of the show, it was kind of crazy for me. And I think Talib is kind of playing a dangerous game.
Yeah, it could be one of those things, man. Let's stir up a controversy to get ratings, get clicks, get views, that kind of thing, like that. And it's especially in the podcast game, as we know, this it's a struggle out there fighting for viewers. People only can there's only so many hours in a day that people can listen. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
maybe they felt like this was something that can spark people to tune in and click subscribe, whatever. But based on what you're telling me about what went down, this seems like much to do about nothing. And even with the ape thing, like you said earlier, Rappaport's married to a black woman, right? So if he posted a picture of the chick next to an ape, is he saying he thinks his wife is an ape, and he thinks his half black kids are ape and shit, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people have to kind of look at things more holistically and come to better decisions than to just immediately throw out the race card because he said her ankles were ashy. She came at him, he came at her. If you can't take it, don't come for motherfuckers.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And and I go back to where I'm saying I think Talib is playing a dangerous game. Today I didn't hold a group. I was a part of a group being facilitated by one of my good men that I locked down. And it's a healthy masculinity group. No, actually, that was yesterday. I'm bugging. But what I'm seeing is that what I'm seeing a lot now is that in order for us as men to protect other people, we're scaling back a lot of ourselves and we're being less than. And I think what Talib is promoting is that we have to be less than, we have to be less of ourselves. We have to be more timid, more afraid, lacking courage to actually say what we want to say in order to ensure we don't offend people. Now, I'm all for understanding, that you should be conscious of not offending people. You should not say racist things. You should not say prejudice or stereotypical things. But certain things I just don't think always qualify, like you said, for the race card, for the racist card. And us as a people, we got to be conscious of this, because if we continue to do that, we continue to label every single thing as racist, every single intent, every single person that says something negative that just happens to be about the opposite culture, you then start to devalue the real arguments of when race is involved.
Mhm.
And Steve is not here today, but this is kind of what he often stresses. If you continue to kind of say every little single thing is racist, you kind of cheapen the argument for when it really is needed. And this was totally not that instance, at least that we know of, based on his track record and his body of work, and just purely the comments wasn't that racist, or not racist at all. If she was ashy,
Right.
he's fat black. I mean, he's fat, white, and old, which he is, and she's ashy, which she was. Case closed.
Yeah.
I just thought that was something of merit to talk about, and just the freedom to have discussion about stuff.
Nah, man, I totally agree with you, man. That seems just way blown out of proportion.
Yeah. Wait till you hear it though. You'll feel way more fired up because I was kind of getting disgusted
Yeah.
listening to it. It was just like, come on, man, this is just ridiculous. But yeah, moving on to our favorite portion of the day. Well, before we do that though, Myles Garrett, the Cleveland Browns defensive end, top defensive end, being reinstated after bopping Mason Rudolph in the head with a helmet. Steve and I think, had very strong feelings towards this. I think Steve said he should have been out the league forever, which I did not believe in nor thought it
No.
was going to happen. But what are your thoughts on this? And he's being reinstated.
So so from what I read from Shefty, Garrett had a meeting with the commissioner today. I get they said he talked about things that he's been doing to get better and how he sees the error in his ways, etc. And they said it was a really good talk, and the commissioner really bought into what he was putting down. He reinstated him. This suspension ended up being 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, based on what happened, and to send a strong message that something like this is totally unacceptable. I mean, this is something that, if this happened in any other scenario, any other context, this dude would be in jail. Because it happened in an NFL game, they kind of just let it go. And I felt like Goodell should have allowed the suspension to carry over into next season, maybe
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 games. Reinstating him now means that it ended up being a 6 game suspension.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about not playing the games; he also didn't get paid. So it's not like there wasn't a substantial punishment there, given the type of salary he has in the games that he missed. I felt like it should have carried over into this season, 1 or 2 games, which would have made it 7 to 8 games. However, I don't think reinstating him at this point is bad either. So thought it should have went a little bit longer, but I don't have a problem with it being lifted at this point.
Yeah. I guess it was up to Goodell's discretion at this point, or whoever. And the consistency of these fines and suspensions are all over the place. As we see with Tyreek Hill,
Mm-hmm.
as Steve, we'd be remiss to mention that, and Steve's feelings about that. For me, as a football player, as a former football player, I thought this act was probably one of the most heinous, most disgusting, most cowardly that I've seen in a long time. Um, I may have only seen something remotely similar to it once that I can think of, but I just thought this was the shittiest thing I've ever seen in a long time, or if at all. I didn't think he should be suspended forever, as other people may have thought. I think hitting him in his checkbook, was a big deal. Um, I hope he's seriously remorseful about it. And I would just want to pay attention to see what kind of player he becomes. It was like at that point where Sue and Dominican Sue just seemed like he was just a dirty guy trying to hurt people week after week. You had the Richie Incognitos that was just doing whatever, the Bill Romanowskis that were just doing whatever. I think if Myles
Montez
Garrett,
Perfect.
well, I never fully, I'm gonna just say this on the record, I never ever really always had a problem with Burfict, because that was the way we were taught how to play football.
Okay.
Every hit that I ever seen him make, I've made them several times myself. Um, so I didn't always feel that way about him per se. I think after a while, and you kept getting in trouble for it and you knew better, I'm like, all right, come on, dude. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But initially I kind of understood where he was coming from. But yeah, I mean, just a lot of the troublemaking bad boys. And I use those other guys per se because they did things on and off the field and in the field of play, like Romanowski breaking his teammates' eye socket, spitting in guys' faces while they're in a tackle. I mean, in a skirmish and under a pile, and trying to like rip off fingers. And then you got Incognito and the bullshit behind him. These guys and Dominican Sue, where there was some things like stepping on a guy a little, but then you stepping on a guy's ankle and
Mm-hmm.
shit like that. I just hope he doesn't turn into one of those guys and wind up being one of those guys. I hope this was one isolated incident for him. And we never truly know what Rudolph may or may not said. I don't think any of them on the field will really confirm or deny what might have happened. But I just hope that this was an isolated incident for him, and that he can bounce back and become a clean player. you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but moving on to our favorite subject of the day, Donnie T in this 2020 election race. So earlier we were talking about, and if anything more pressing comes up, but earlier we were talking about, you know, Bernie Sanders and this promise to eliminate college loans and debt. And you basically said with the Republican control of the Senate, it'll never happen.
Hmm.
And I think my question is, if we truly believe that no Democratic president can ever get anything of substance passed by this Senate, my question is, what is the point at that point of having a Democratic president run at all? If they're anything they're ever really going to do is just going to be stonewalled.
So I think that the question you ask is extremely valid, right? But
Hmm.
I feel like there are a couple of things to consider. One, I think that if Bernie is the nominee, he's going to lose. Trump will be reelected, and I think that he will be reelected handily, for that matter. And the reason why I feel that way is that when you look at it and you look at an election, right? Elections in our country, especially since we have a two-party system, are binary choices, right? Do you want this guy or you want that guy? When you have one person that's in the race, when it's not an open presidential election, meaning that there's not an incumbent,
Hmm.
the election is a referendum on the president, right? Do you like the direction of the country? Do you want 4 more years of what you've got in the last 4 years, right? If Bernie is the nominee, the election switches from being a referendum on Trump to, I think, a referendum on socialism,
Hmm.
because Bernie characterizes himself as a democratic socialist. And the problem is that in our country, our folks are not savvy enough to kind of look into what's being pitched to them. So they're going to see TV commercials and Facebook ads that tell them you're going to turn into Cuba or Venezuela, etc., and they're going to run with it, right? Meanwhile, when Bernie talks socialism, he's talking about European style socialism, like in Finland with, healthcare and college and maternity leave and things like that,
Hmm.
But that's not the way it's going to be sold. And to your point of what's the point of having a Democratic president if you can't get things passed that your base and the people who support you want? Is that if Bernie's the nominee, the support that he would need to pass these things it's not going to be there for him. And the reason I say that is that right now the Democrats don't control the Senate. They need to hold everything they have now plus pick up 4 seats, right? MJ Hager running against the guy in Texas. She's not for any of the things that Bernie supports, right? Amy McGrath in Kentucky running against Mitch McConnell. She's not for any of the things Bernie support. Kyle Cunningham running against Tom Tillis in North Carolina is not for any of those things. Sarah Gideon in Maine is not for any of those things. So you have candidates who fit the area that they're from, and most of the country is not on board with Bernie. So I'm not sure how he gets those things passed.
But let's swap Bernie out then and put Elizabeth Warren in,
Uh-huh.
and let's just focus not on so much the candidate, but the proposal.
Okay.
So, do you believe that, let's just say, a stroke of a miracle happens? Because I've doubted Elizabeth's ability to win simply because, um, voting history between white women in this country is not favorable to her in my belief. And we talked about the connection on how Hillary had a lot of negative baggage with her on top of the woman angle. But again, 50% of white women who can see a lot of similarities in themselves still chose to vote for the guy that grabs people by the pussy. But with that all set aside, let's just say Elizabeth Warren wins. and she proposes this grandiose idea, which I love, of getting rid of all student loans and debt. Well, all student debt currently. Um, do you think it then gets passed in the Senate with her at the helm?
I don't as well, and I don't think it gets passed with her or Bernie. Even though Elizabeth is a straight Democrat and Bernie is a Democratic socialist, I just think that the support in the Congress is not there for it. Now, what Elizabeth Warren has talked about, Bernie hasn't really talked about this on the campaign trail, but I'm pretty sure he probably would do the same thing. Is getting rid of some of the student debt by executive order. They don't have to use the Congress for that. And talking about federal student debt that's given out by the Department of Education through FAFSA or whatever. Having the Secretary of Education just cancel that. Now, that would be a huge chunk, but you have a lot of people who do have private student debt, and that's something that you'd have to go through the Congress to do. And I don't see that happening. I mean, I'm somewhat in favor of student debt, of getting rid of student debt. I think that, we're talking about trillions of dollars in student debt in this country. It goes up every single year by billions and billions of dollars. And, you have young mid 20-year-olds who are strapped down with debt before they've even started their life. So that's something like that would be a huge boost to the economy. But I just don't know how it passes. I don't see the votes for it. And with Bernie, I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks ago when Hillary said, nobody likes Bernie. He has no friends in Congress or something to that effect. And I don't think that nobody doesn't like him, but Bernie's been in Congress for about 20 years and hasn't passed any meaningful pieces of legislation in his 20-something year career. And there's a reason for that. And part of the reason is that the things that Bernie supports, the other folks don't, Now, his running for president in 16 and then again in 20 has galvanized some of the country behind some of these ideas. And then you've had people running for Congress like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York, Ilhan Omar in Minnesota, Rashida Tlaib in Michigan, Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts, who supports a lot of these things. But these are just 4 congresswomen, right? You have a lot of people who are trying to run in 2020 who supports a lot of these ideas that Bernie has out there. Now, as those folks gain more steam, get more seats in the Congress, we might have a conversation, but I don't think that's going to happen in 20. We might be talking about a few election cycles. And even if Bernie is the nominee, does get elected and reelected, he may still not have enough support in the Congress to pass some of those things by that time.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, though, again, the shared theme is by any means necessary by any Democrat necessary. And with that said, how do you feel about our guy Pete Buttigieg?
I'm not a fan of Pete, and part of the reason why I don't really rock with Pete is that, one, is his age. Buttigieg is a year younger than I am. You know what I'm saying? And that, I don't know, like, even like in my work, I've had managers that I'm older than, and that just seems weird to me, but such is life, right? But for the president to be somebody that's a year younger than I am, like, I don't feel like 37, you've lived enough life. And granted, everybody is different levels of maturity, education, etc. But 37 years old is just so young to be to say that you should be the president.
The leader of the free world.
Yeah, that just takes a lot of fucking moxie and balls, and I just don't see it. But even if you put that aside and you say he's the most mature 37-year-old I ever met, right? Part of the problem for Buttigieg for me is that when you listen to Buttigieg speak, he speaks in platitudes, and it's great sounding stuff. We're gonna make America a country where you don't have to work 2 jobs to get ahead, and a country where you can feel proud of your president and you can do this and that. And what that does when candidates speak like that, it allows them to not say anything specific that can be criticized. And it allows the voter to then impose their own political beliefs on the candidate to say, yeah, this is what Pete believes. And you've never heard him say that before, but you think he believes it, right? Because you believe it. And for him, I need to see more specifics. And at this point, we're voting now in primaries and caucuses, and I'm not seeing the specifics. So there's no there for me to get behind him like that. At least with a candidate like Bernie, Warren, even Klobuchar, somebody who's extremely moderate. She doesn't claim to be a progressive at all. They at least put their policies out there and say, this is what I believe. This is what I'm running on. This is what I want to do if I get in the chair. And Buttigieg is just these high-minded platitudes, that's, yeah, in a country like this, we have to all work together. Okay, work together for what? Like, what are we working towards?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think this political climate has made that acceptable in a lot of ways. We're in the media, and we're looking for sound bites, and he's likable, and he relates to a population of people, and he's young, he's white. So yeah, he has those things going for him. But talking about these primaries, this is 2 in a row now that Elizabeth Warren has found herself at the bottom tier. What is the future for Lizzie Warren?
She's found herself in the middle, but not enough to get anything. Yeah,
middle to bottom. You're pretty much middle bottom.
Exactly.
In both regards. What does the future hold for Lizzie Warren?
For Warren, I actually think Warren will be okay because Warren is a liberal Democrat from Massachusetts, so I don't think she's in any danger of losing her seat. People love her, so I think she'll be okay. In the Senate for a long time. Well, yeah, I guess you could say a long time. Dianne Feinstein's like 80 something years old, and she's still senator from California. So Elizabeth's in her 60s, so she still got time. So I think Warren will be okay. What I would hope is that if a Democrat does win, and let's say, for example, that it's not Bernie, whether it's Pete, Biden, whoever, right? I would hope that they would bring in someone like Elizabeth Warren, not necessarily take her from the Senate to put her in the administration, but bring her in as somebody who like consults with them on some of these agencies that deal with things in the economy, like in the Treasury Department or the SEC and things like that. Because I think Elizabeth Warren has some really good ideas for those departments, and I think that her voice would be something that would be very beneficial. It's why Obama tried to get her in the when he brought her in to help him create the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Obama wanted Warren to head that department, and the Republicans were like, no way. They hated her because of her stance on consumer protections. And so they basically filibustered her nomination, said that she would never get a vote. And she was like, okay, fuck it. I'll withdraw. I don't want to be the director of the CFPB anymore. I'm going to go run for Senate. And then I'll come in here and start fucking shit up in the Congress then, And then she ran and won.
I believe you're right, largely, that she is okay. But it kind of feels like she might be on the verge of losing steam.
You mean in the presidential race or just generally?
I think generally, I kind of feel like, and maybe because I'm looking at it from the positionality of what the media is portraying, she's not the gem topic anymore. But we gotta assume that when it comes to her state, of course, she'll run away with it. I would hope, and it would be very telling if she didn't. But I just don't feel like she's the darling of what we're thinking about anymore, as it seems as the media is portraying. I think Pete is picking up a lot of steam. Bernie, simply because he's Bernie and a New York controversial old man, he's going to be relevant. And then there's Joe, because Joe is Joe. And I don't know how much Joe can really sustain and keep this going. And then Bloomberg, who spent 300 million thus far to get into your home every hour on the hour. Um, this is getting really nasty.
Yeah.
And it continues to worry me that when it comes time to go against this guy, his base is already solid. They're already crazy. He's already galvanizing those that already have been behind him from the beginning. And, while that is his base, there are a lot of people that don't want to outright support him, but do on undercover ways support him. And he's seemingly, and we're talking about Trump, he's seemingly strategically finding a way to still be the asshole dick stain that he is, but tone it down and kind of focus or portray as if he has focus on some issues. And this kind of worries me, man. And we said this last pod, and as each primary goes by, we'll probably continue to say it. I don't know if we got a chance, man. I really don't.
And I totally agree. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about an hour or so before we started recording, and I was telling her this same exact thing, where as the weeks in this primary nominating season is happening, I continue to become more worried about Trump being reelected. I think, while I can't hide from anything I've said. I've said on this pod, I've said in our chats that I thought Biden was the guy. Biden has continually looked weak and weaker and weaker each week that goes on. You see it in his polling numbers are starting to soften. Even his polling number among African Americans is starting to soften. His fundraising has extremely softened. And, it just shows you that people think that he's a weak candidate. And the rest of that field, besides Bernie, is weak themselves. Even though I don't,
in their own respect, right? Yeah,
right. And even though I'm not necessarily rocking with Bernie, but at least he's consistent, he's strong, he has fire in his belly. His people are solidly behind him. And I think due to the weakness of this field is how you can have a guy like Bloomberg already hitting double digits in support and only running TV commercials.
With no debate,
just TV commercials, no debate,
no real campaign layout or any. Has he even addressed the public yet?
No, he's done like a couple of like forums with journalists where they ask him some questions, like at the National Press Club, things like that. But it's mostly campaign commercials. He does events where he's out like talking to people on why he should be president, etc. But it's mostly running TV ads, TV, radio, and Facebook and stuff. And part of the thing with Bloomberg, I said it before, is that because he's so fucking rich, this dude he can literally run everywhere at the same time. Buttigieg he won Iowa, closely won Iowa, second place in New Hampshire, and he just went up on TV in Nevada today, right? Bloomberg's been in Nevada for 2 months now. Bloomberg is not even on the ballot in Nevada, and he's already there. You see what I'm saying? And so that's how you get a guy like Bloomberg, who was a huge advocate of stop and frisk. The guy who was against the settlement that the city made with the Central Park 5, right?
Yep.
On and on and on, the things that he's done that people in the black community would fucking hate or do hate. And he's already at 22% with African Americans in polling because of how weak this field is. And Bloomberg might fuck around and be the guy. And I don't like him.
And be the candidate elect.
Yeah.
And this is why I always, and I mean, you're a staunch Democrat, as I am. I've always voted Democrat. Only time I haven't thus far has been in my state gubernatorial race because the Democratic field has been trash.
Yeah.
largely in comparison to my guy Larry. Um, uh, but I fault us as a party because we accept, and I'm talking about the masses. Even the Republican base that isn't knowledgeable of anything, the old pitchfork, angry mob, lynch mob part of it, they still go with what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're so damn liberal. We're so damn just blind and not demanding of better that we get these scenarios. How is he up 22% in the African American community? And after everything you just said in New York City, I don't even understand how he won the mayoral race. Um, it's just like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, and part of it too is that with Republicans, they have a base that they all pretty much believe in the same thing. They want low taxes, they want unlimited access to guns, and you know, leave their churches alone. And it's kind of those three main things. They might have some other stuff sprinkled in, but it's kind of those are kind of like the big three. And with Democrats, because Democrats are such a big tent party, you have people who are in the tent but aren't there for the same reasons, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
like, we went to a cookout. I came for the mac and cheese, but you came for the greens. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
And that's kind of how it is with the Democratic Party. You have some folks who are there because they're staunch advocates for the environment. Some folks who are only there because they support gay rights. Other folks are there because they support, you know, voting rights, or whatever, Medicare for all, you name it. And these folks aren't all on the same page, because it's like, well, we I'll put it this way. Ted Kennedy used to say this thing where he said, and it might not be his saying, but that's the person I heard it from the first time.
Mhm.
You can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think that's where we fuck up at as a party, is that we say, hey, um, we for 100 years they've been trying to pass some kind of healthcare bill. Obama passed healthcare in 2010. A bunch of Democrats lost their seats over it because they took that vote, and they started implementing it in 2014. And now in this election, people are like, Obamacare fucking sucks. And it's like we got something. Like, let's try to build on it. Instead, they're like, we need to just throw this shit away. You know, and I think we allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good a lot. Is Obamacare awesome? No, but there's some good things in Obamacare, and there are some things that can be expanded upon, and some things that can be fixed or whatever. But in order to do those things, people in the Democratic Party have to realize, like we said earlier, when you said, what's the point of having a Democrat president if you can't get some of the things that Democrats support, right? In order to get the things that you support, it requires power. You have to
Yes.
win elections and control seats, you know.
Yes.
And without that, we can't do the things. Our leaders can't do the things that we want them to do if we have no power.
And I always go back to saying, for a party that is supposedly so representative of the little guy, of the people, it does a horrible job galvanizing, organizing, and getting the minority, and um I won't say the maybe I could say a large part of let me just say, I don't think they do a good job organizing the people.
Uh-huh.
And again, I think if anything outside of Obama's charm, um, um, education, Michelle being the closer, even though she's a part of this, I think the best thing that he did, and he laid the blueprint that is still not being largely followed, other than the likes of Bernie to a large degree, they are not doing enough to get into the communities and organize to get these votes that are laying around in our urban cities with people that are uneducated and unwilling and that have lost hope. Obama
Uh-huh.
was such a symbol and model of hope. I mean, this guy touched the communities. He really had an organized machine getting people out of the projects, getting them educated to vote and register. I mean, there are people that haven't been registered or been active voters since '08
Mm-hmm.
for that very same reason. And I just don't understand why we haven't, as a party, made that connection.
Yeah, and I feel like also too, like it almost feels like we're not like it's almost like we're battling the last election, right? And what I mean by it is that you have a guy like Trump who he just doesn't give a fuck. He says whatever he wants to say. He does whatever he wants to do. Nobody checks him, right? But on our side, the folks are still, oh, my good friend, have a disagreement, da, 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 and it's like, yo, fuck that. Like, this shit is serious here. And we need to come at people and just say, what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you were talking about Obama galvanizing people to want to get out of the projects and things like that, right? Great. I'm all for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, at the same time, the Trump administration is talking about cutting fucking funds that go to places like the projects, places that are like communities that use Section 8 or food stamps or, whatever kind of government assistance. Why isn't there some Democratic candidate, or maybe you can't get a candidate there, but some kind of organization or something that's going to these places to say, hey, the help that you use to pay your fucking rent is about to be cut off if you leave this motherfucker in office. Now come over here to this table and sign this voter registration form so you can vote for the guy who don't want to fucking cut you off. Hey, your kid is on Medicaid because you don't make that much money and you still need health care for your child. This dude is proposing $1 trillion in cuts to health care. That means your kid ain't going to be able to see a doctor. Come sign this fucking form and register to vote so you can get rid of this motherfucker. And on and on and on. But they don't do that. It's like, oh, listen to my ideals and I'm just a great guy. We're going to go back to normal and all that kind of shit. And it's like, you need to let people know how important this shit is, and get their asses out the chairs and into the voting booth.
Yeah. You hit that spot on, and I'm gonna say I think, because I had three different thoughts and I might have lost because I was listening and thinking at the same time. One, organizations like Acorn, I brought this up before, and the community organizing ability that they've had have burned so many bridges with embezzlement and all of that. We lack that. Two, sad to say, a lot of our black civic organizations, I'm a part of one. Uh, a lot of our black civic organizations that have existed for hundreds of years are not living out their purpose because they're too focused on money, insurance, liability, and basically becoming a brand. I would largely say that they have lost their way. And three, a lot of these candidates are not truly attaching themselves to these civic organizations and telling them, hey, if you line up your membership, if you do this for us, we will not only protect you from anything if we lose or whatever, but we will create more partnerships. We will do more things. Miss Harris, Senator Harris, she largely had a window to do this, being a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which has millions of affluent black uh, women as members. I think largely her problem was, and a big problem for me, was her history in as a prosecutor and those things. And a lot of people I don't think felt she was the one and was genuine. But again, we need someone that is going to connect themselves to something and pick a niche and run with it. And the Obama family was so smart, so strategic in this, that they hit those college campuses. I mean, hard.
Yeah.
They realized that the capital and what they needed to win and win big was in the youth, man. And I will never forget watching Miss Michelle Obama come to Delaware State University, man, and speak in front of me. I might have been 20 feet away from her. And I mean, I'm getting chills right now. She literally brought me to tears, man. Like hearing her story growing up in Chicago, just hearing all of the adversity, and she just made me feel like she understood me and she
Mm-hmm.
was me. And at the time, I knew a little about Barack because he had visited Princeton, and one of my line brothers had met him, et cetera, et cetera. And he was like, yo, this guy's the next big thing. And I think that was years before. But I was like, I don't give a shit who your husband is, man. Because you married to him, you got me. And we just don't have that, man. And I think as a party, we might have to demand more and put better out there. But sheesh, man. God damn it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, man, with demanding more because and that's part of what I always say about Republicans, they hold their people to the fire and our side doesn't. Obama, I remember when Obama got elected in '08 and they were talking about how he had this huge like online fundraising thing. And back then, now like Trump's online fundraising is insane. The only person that's even close to it is probably Bernie, but Bernie's not really close. He's the only one that you can kind of compare on the Democratic side. Um, and they were saying like how Obama's reaching people through Facebook and they have this huge email list and when Obama, once he takes the oath, he's gonna propose something, and anybody who doesn't get in line, they're basically gonna filter that email list to say all of my contacts in insert state and blast out emails to say, hey, you need to get on Congressman so and so, Senator so and so. They're not supporting Barack, and that shit never happened. It never happened because it seems like our base says, all right, election day, voted, deuces, you know, and we have to do a better job of staying on these people to say you guys need to start implementing the shit that we want. It's not enough to just get you in office. We also need results. And that's the thing with Trump. As much as a fucking scumbag Trump is, right? He's delivering for his people.
Yep.
They hate him on Twitter. They hate that he says some of the foul negative shit that he says. They love those judges. They love those tax cuts. They love all
Yep.
that deregulation, right? And that's why they keep rocking with him. I saw a
Yep.
story. I was watching MSNBC the other day, and they were saying they was talking to this guy out in I want to say it was Michigan. He runs like a roofing company or whatever, and he was like, I really don't really. I voted for Trump. I really don't like what he's doing personally, but since he's been president, my business is doing great. And the guy, they asked the dude, "Are you going to vote for him for re-election?" And he was like, I mean, it's tough. He was like, I don't really want to, but I'm doing great. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, most people think that way. Most people don't think, man, does the country really need this guy? They think, I own this roofing company and we were doing pretty shitty, and Trump came along and business is booming. So
Self-preservation.
yeah, exactly.
It's simple math, man. Self-preservation. Who's doing what for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the dirty game of politics. But the Democrats, since Barack ain't been winning in that game,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna cause us to be where we are,
Yeah,
and it's frustrating, man. It
it
is
is.
it is truly frustrating, and a glaring example of that is the state of Maryland. The largest city in the state, Democrat, everything in debt, murders. I mean, we're up to 39 murders already. 39.
It's only February.
This is double, or not double, maybe about, I don't know how many more than last year, but we already surpassed the rate. You got that going on. Not to mention O'Malley was the mayor at one point in Baltimore City, and then became the governor for 2 terms. And you got Hogan came out of nowhere and took a blue state over, man. And it's pretty frustrating.
Let
All
me
right.
let me ask you a question about Baltimore.
Yeah.
This, I think that this would suck, but I just wonder how you feel about it.
Hmm.
How would you, do you think that a policy like stop and frisk would help the situation in Baltimore? As bad of a policy as it is, a lot of people credit that policy with kind of turning around crime
New York.
in New York, even
Yeah.
though it was a super shitty policy.
Yeah. And it's funny, I was just looking on a post today that Hogan posted about certain things, about if we don't get it right here, he's gonna do something. And the police commissioner came out with something yesterday basically saying that it's basically gonna be more hands off in policy, in approach. Um, I lived through the stop and frisk era, and I would tell you, to be and you know what? A lot of black people I see um talk about this. I don't know really lived in New York City
Mm-hmm.
or New York metro area at the time. But I was a kid or a young teen or a teen out there in the street running around the street. And I'm gonna tell you, man, from the gun laws to the bullet laws to knowing, you can get stopped for, having gang like paraphernalia. It made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Guys thought twice before they wanted to shoot somebody. Um, they weren't just lawless. And I know the implications, I know the ramifications. Um, and it's a fine line. And I also think, I think this city would be possibly better equipped in a way to deal with it because more of the officers are black
Mm-hmm.
here than they were in New York City and still now. So that may go a long way. Um, the laws here and for the crime and punishment and the repetition of offenders, I think is another big problem. These cats know what they're doing. They know what time they're gonna get. A lot of the shot callers are utilizing children to carry out major crimes because they know what the court will do to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the punishment is a large problem. Um, and then culturally, man, it's just a culture here that I don't think the people know that they're dying inside and out. Your cousins out here killing people. Like I knew somebody personally that was weeping in tears and oh, they shot my cousin up. Yo, but your cousin was a murderer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he knew what it was. He knew what time it was. And I think we continue as a people to condone this behavior, this culture. So I mean, to answer your question in totality, do I know it will work? Am I a huge fan of it? Maybe not. But I think we're at a point where we might not have a damn choice.
Yeah.
We might not have a damn choice. There are guns everywhere on the street, man. Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah.
We might not have a choice.
And like while you were talking, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like, you know, shit at some point it gets so bad to like maybe the political leadership feels like, we have to do something. You know what I mean? Like people can't live in a major metropolitan city that has 500-600 murders a year, and like you said, it may come to a point to where there is no choice. I think that given the experience that New York had implementing that policy, as well as what you said with a lot of the cops being black themselves, you probably could take things from it and learn, where, in New York, there was a disparity and more black and brown people being stopped and frisked versus white people or whatever. But I think that something like that, it could help. Is it the right answer? I don't know. But like you said, it may not be another choice at some point.
Yeah, I mean, at what point do we really say, the people can't police themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And our leaders in the city, while they're from here, they're black, democratic, largely, they haven't been able to make a change. And the streets are burning up, man. And whether we like it or not, I think it's heading that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for us to have 39 murders and per capita it's like 600,000 people in
Mm-hmm.
the city. and the numbers are staggering. I don't know that we're gonna have a choice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But with that said, man, leave me with 3 questions to ask for a first date. I know it's been a while, but you know what I mean.
3 questions for a first date. I would think it depends on your situation, right? Because like for you're a single dad, right? So one of the questions would definitely have to be about kids. How do you feel about kids? I think another question would potentially be, what are you looking for? Because me and you might not be looking for the same thing. I may be looking for a long-term relationship, and you maybe just be looking to have some fun.
Right.
Um. Man, I don't know. Third question.
It's been a while, huh? That's
Yeah,
what
man.
happened.
I'm kind of at a loss.
Happily married. That's when a man is happily married.
I'm kind of lost on number 3. I'm not sure, man.
When you gonna give me them draws?
Yeah,
3 questions. Yeah, those are some good ones. Yeah, just random stuff. Being that it's the Valentine's Day spirit, and
yeah.
all that good stuff is going on. We try to keep cast-worthy and relevance, even though it's about 2 married men and me. 3 when E is around. But yeah, man, definitely good take today, man. And if you guys have been listening to us, and we are the CastWorthy podcast. I didn't introduce myself. EJ, the sophisticated savage. I got the VP of research here. This was Wednesday, February 12, 2020. Check us out on Instagram, CastWorthy_podcast, right?
Yeah.
And then CastWorthy on Twitter, also CastWorthy on Facebook, Spreaker, iTunes, Google Play, Cast Deezer, Castbox, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. I forgot the other ones, but yeah, man, VP, man, it's been a good run.
Yes, sir.
We got a good hour and change. Why don't you take us on out like you normally do?
Yes, sir. Folks, we definitely appreciate you rocking with us, making that choice to rock with us and listen to us. If you could go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, comment, follow, share, we definitely appreciate it. And again, we appreciate you taking the journey with us and listening to our thoughts on different things. Hit us up in the comment sections of those social media platforms. Let us know what you want to hear, what you want us to talk about. And I'm going to keep saying it throughout this year, 2020. Get up, get registered, get involved, get out there and vote. Take somebody with you, drive somebody. If you can, donate $1 or $2 to your candidate, and let's see if we can get this guy out of there. I'm not hiding my bias, at least, But again, we appreciate you rocking with us. You can hit us up on any of the social media platforms, like EJ said, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
And we out. Peace.